run open code CLI in a pipeline for something and yeah, hitting a few barriers. Like when you configure using a UI, it's quite hard to, what happens behind the scenes when I configure the provider and the model and the et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, yeah. So where do you want to start then, Matthias? What's the
Uh,
easiest?
I just so yeah, I will be able to show a bit already. 1 second. Dun, 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 dun. But I
So
basically
just like for yeah,
yeah.
for like Dennis Anatoly, like the um
So
what we wanted to talk about was kind of like understanding the different ways of running open code. So like our primary or the project I spend the most time in is probably the contributor platform project, which runs in a dev container. So I've been running open code on my host machine, which means it then has to kind of try and figure out how to connect into the dev container to run RSpec and Rubocop and etc. Or I could have tried to install it inside the dev container, but then I'd struggle to access my auth config, etc. etc. So Matthias has got like something that you're pretty happy with, comfortable with, you like, yeah, of your way of sort of solving these things. I'm sure you're not saying it's the only way or the correct sort of, it's
at all.
just the way that works for you.
Yes.
But I'd love to learn more. So far away.
Yeah. So indeed, one of the things I like to work with on my local machine is I don't like to install or use local tooling. So by design, I don't like to have open code or PHP or Ruby or whatever on my local machine because it's not so reproducible. And so that's where I started to figure out how can I, for example, the contributor platform, make it work. Because I don't want to have it locally. I want my contributor platform containerized, the Ruby version, the Postgres, everything, all the needed tools in there. So also my dependencies for my AI tooling, being it open code or GitLab Duo or Codex, doesn't really matter, that part. I've been trying that or I've been using that, and I have tried it successfully, and both for GitLab and my personal, where for my personal work and at home I use different tooling, but it's the same approach and it there works too. So it's not related to or the contributor platform or GitLab, is a very agnostic way. And the key thing I do, and I will share my screen in a bit, is so I use dev containers, but I ensure that I don't have to do everything over and over again. That's one thing. And two, I don't want to force my opinionated way, because in the end it's an opinionated way, to other people using it. I just want to be sure that it's for me very seamless, that I don't have to think about it. It's just automatically there. So I make use of a few key components there. 1 second, I'm closing some tabs so I can share. Yes, there we go. Yeah. So what do I do? In my dev container, or what did I create? That's the better approach. I created a feature. Dev containers allow you to use features. You most likely already used them without knowing it. Because sometimes you see, like in the dev container configuration, that it loads Git or it loads Docker. That's a feature. What
Yep.
is a feature? A feature is nothing special. A feature is nothing more than, I can show it here. It is a definition of something. And the key thing out there, it can use the same um, or some of the same. No, it's not not everything is possible there, but it can, for example, execute some commands. And here you can see my feature depends on another feature. It depends on Git. And so what does it do? Every time that feature is started, it executes the script. And in that script, as you will, oh no, sorry, I'm wrong here. It's twofold. It's twofold. There's some part that happens automatically or automatically, and that's the install.sh, always happens. And there I install some tooling. So here I install a specific version of GLab, of GKG, of ArcIT. I will zoom in on RTK in a bit, and open code. So all of that happens here automatically. It's like a little script.
Awesome.
Cool. It just happens. No problems there. No problems there. Yeah. But of course, that's cool if you want to use it. but you don't want to repeat yourself. And that's where the cool feature kicks in. Let me share my other screen, because I don't have to enable that feature every time I use something, because you have some very cool setting in VS Code. So that's where I use it, because you can say in VS Code, entire screen, this one, you can say in VS Code in your settings. So I will do it again, 1 second. If you do Command Shift P and then settings and user settings, you can say always load this specific feature for every project I own, or every project I open, basically. You will see here another one. I will zoom in on that in a bit, but that's basically where you can define it. So you define it, you create it once, and then every project can load it. Of course, big caveat. I think I documented it. Let me quickly check. Because it's of course a little bit dependent on the base image. I cannot suddenly use SUSE or something else because I don't support it. So in this case, but for all the projects that I have used at GitLab until this point, they are all based on Debian or Ubuntu. So I can use opt, I can use the tooling that's there. So, but all the rest is basically automagically. So the moment I start my project, the normal flow happens for for example, the contributor platform, installing the needed tools and running npm install or whatnot. And then this happens. And tada, I have open code. Yeah, there is some generated content here. Something else that I do, and that's the second one. So you saw here, if I go back here, this is not the one I've been using. This is about dev container feature open code tooling, and here you see something about Vivari open code. What's that? This is purely the tooling, nothing else, purely software. What is this? This is basically the bridge to give it the necessary information to be able to operate, being my agents, my tool definition, my skills, and so on and so on. That's all in here. That's basically the enabler to mount that. Why? I still want one single sort of truth for all of that. I want to manage it once, what agents I use and what config I have, and also to keep it safe. Because in here there is nothing. This is an empty box. It's purely, if you would look at what happens here, it's nothing more than 1 second. I'm going to go back here, because what does it do? It's more important to show it here, because 1 second. Yes, it defines, and that's where it comes to your own and your opinion configuration. It mounts specific paths for me. It mounts my agent config, which is basically my agents and skills and so on. It mounts all the sessions. I will come back to that in a bit. And it mounts my local secret profile file. The data it needs to be able to operate. For example, your logic to authenticate. It's in there. To ensure that when I start, that it's there. And that's it. So, and here you will see, and this is some, CI magic, so to say. So I include that one for every project. This one depends on the tooling one I just showed, and it automatically will resolve versions. Why is that? While you're developing, you don't want to make a tag for every change or small thing you um, want to work on. So I made something that's automatically use dev or main branch or so on. But that's not relevant for what I want to show. It's basically these are two dependencies. And that's it. And then suddenly, when I go to my project, and let me go in 1 second, I go to the one I'm talking about, the contributor platform. Yes, there we go. Let me share my screen again. I just hit a also interesting issue. I was trying to downsync the database, and Google Cloud did something very funky with the releases. I will tell in a bit. But then my project has started. And here I now can run OpenCode. And I'm here, which is cool, because here I have automatically my agent and flows and my agents and skills and so on. I can do everything I have here as automatically authenticated because of the logic in my profile and so on and so on. And I can start working. And I can also see all my session list. I can see all my previous sessions. I all have this only for this project. So this open code cannot see my local system, cannot see anything else. It's all encapsulated here. And that's for me also one of the key things I like. It's the separation of everything. But I can use this. I can do the normal things in open code. Of course, that does also mean that I'm using most of the time this terminal. Like I'm in here. I'm not in my local terminal with my funky oh my ZSH tooling and so on and so on. Well, nothing is blocking me to, if I would want that, to basically build it into this feature of VS Code and have all my ZSH logic in there. But to be honest, I use it a lot on local. I don't care in my VS Code, to be honest. I don't use it. I don't use it anymore. It's very strange. It's like I was also thinking like I need to build that in to make it work, but no, I don't use it. So most of the time, what I do is I have my open code like this, which is my terminal. I see on the left side, I see my files and things I change, so I can follow along with what I'm doing. But for the rest, everything is here. And the um, link between what's in open code and your VS Code is really good. I can show you that based on a better example. 1 second. For example, yes, this is a good example. For example, so this is a session where I'm working on a specific MR. This is now for the GitLab itself, for the monolith, not for the contributor platform. But I'm working on MR and I needed to update some screenshots because I did a rebase, some logic needs to change. And this is my whole session I have with my agent. And at some point, it's 1 second, let me quickly check. It's above here. I know it's a little bit more here. So basically in here, it made some screenshots automatically of my browser. We'll show in a bit. But you can just click on it and it opens it. So those links in here are usable. So it is also about having one environment to see it all. I have my whole code base here. I have every file and everything that it can do. I can see it in one view. So also if it would reference, it's not happening in this session, but if it references a specific file, I can click on it, make changes and so on. And I use that a lot. For example, if I use my agent to write text for me, a merge request, an issue, and so on, the first thing I do, I don't ask it to write it in the console or in the TUI, but I ask it to write it to file. I click on the file, I make some edits, and I continue. So also that feedback loop to be able to do is a markdown file for the next step. And that's really powerful. And that's why I like it to have it in one contained environment. Everything is here. It's not in another window, it's within VS Code. As you see also here, I don't stop at one session for the same project at the same time. So I have multiple ones. And I leave them open because maybe I come back to some issue, and you can see here something went wrong here. It went a little bit too fast in doing something, and then I stopped it and continued. But basically, this is what I mean. You can click on it and you're in that file. Very easy. You can follow it. So I use that a lot this way. Something else. I have no MCP enabled by default. None. I don't really use MCP in that way. What I have some MCPs here that I can enable the moment I need them, but they are disabled by default. It's for multiple reasons. It's also for like token usage and so on. And I know lazy MCP exists for a reason, and that's a very good and powerful tool. But I just don't like it so much. The one I use the most of it is a local browser. It's extremely powerful for applications that have a web UI, like the contributor platform or GitLab, to test stuff out. And to give an example, this
Is that off the shelf, Matthias, or is that some kind of custom?
the browser is actually on the shelf. That's the Chrome developer CD. Well, 1 second. 1 second. It's actually something really cool. It's Chrome developer tools that can connect to a Chrome profile. 1 second, I will show it. 1 second.
The MCP sort
Yeah.
of tool
It
or
will make it
whatever
easier.
is.
Give me 2 seconds. I will just show it, like the code. It's easier to explain. Where did I put it? CDP bridge. Yes, here we go. It's also yes. So it's this one. My CDP bridge. And CDP stands for your Chrome. I forgot the exact Chrome developer something. I forgot what the P is about. But basically, my Chrome runs on my local system. And the only thing it can do, it can connect via a port, so to say, to it, and it's fire and forget. It runs, it starts when my machine starts, and it's there. And what is the cool thing about it? It's not this browser. This is my browser. My agent also has a browser, or my
Yeah.
AI system also
Yeah.
has.
Yeah.
I don't share credentials. I had nothing. They cannot do anything. They can just play around in it. So let me quickly check if I can find it. Is it this one? Yes, I think it's this one. Yes, there we go. So this is that browser. You see it's another color. I also make ensure that they have different color. And my browser can play along with this one. What does it do? So basically you can still see, like, I'm not hovering over it and still it's hovered. That's because I use my agent to create screenshots for a specific MR so it can control it fully. And so all what I did for the MRs I'm working on right now for the starring and namespace usage or the usage for catalog items is fully done with that browser. I just asked make me the screenshots of the 4 variants and it does, or even I didn't specify the 4 variants. It just did it work, created screenshots and so on. But also like for testing alignment of stuff, like for front-end work to validation, it's really powerful to do it. And so I gave it explicitly a separate browser and a separate profile to be really sure that it cannot, and that gives some friction the first time you need to log in. That's it. But your agent is smart enough, for example, for GDK, the GitLab development environment, to figure out normal password and so on. So it takes one extra hop, or I authenticate myself, and it goes. And the
And
cool thing,
is this browser forwarded from the dev container, or is this instance also from your local?
uh, that's the only thing that runs on my local. That's my Chrome. Yes.
Okay.
And then what has happens here, there is a little script that basically does the bridge between this and MCP. And I made a very small MCP server, which is here.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah.
But so the MCP server isn't off the shelf. You actually had to create.
Yes, but the thing is, the MCP server itself, well, 1 second, let me show another part. Oh wait, I can show that here because that's in my config. Let's go here. So if I go here and I ask to open code, come on, learn to type. I think I will have something. It has to be something like this. I'm just grabbing it out of my config. Yeah, that doesn't work. That's not useful because I wanted to only have that part. Grep MCP. Does that work? Yes. So basically, what I use is I use this is basically what I use. So I have an MCP definition of that Chrome DevTools MCP. That's basically those DevTools that's an existing package. And I
So
just say
that is off the shelf. The
that's off the
Chrome
shelf. That's
DevTools
fully off the shelf.
MCP.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
The only thing I did is that bridge because normally that runs on your local machine. But that's what I don't want to have. That my coding environment is on my local machine. So I made a little bridge to make it work. And it's flawlessly. It's there is no speed penalty there. It's really cool. It's really fast and it works really well. Yeah, and yeah, that works very well to do anything with browser, with validation, with screenshots, with whatever. It's yeah, by design okay. And so you will see all of them have enabled false because I don't like it to have them enabled by default. And so the only thing I do when I know I will work on something, I do MCP, I toggle them, and that's it. So now I don't know why it's trying to not yeah, okay, it's working. Yeah. So and that works really well. And sometimes it happens that my agent says, well, I can't access a browser and I need to enable it, but I don't mind that burden, so to say. And so this setup, I have this running for multiple projects at the same time. I have it for the contributor platform, I have it for the monolith, I have it for the AI component, CI component we made for the AI catalog management. And I also have one for random questions. Because
That's kind of where I was thinking of challenging or sort of like, so how do you handle I know your MCP doesn't have that quite same connection to Glean that we have, but if you've got a random like, oh, how do I know who to ask? I need access to OpenAI. How do I know who to ask? You know, you want to fire it something random.
Yes, and that's a cool thing. I just opened a VS Code session and I started because it loads it automatically. So I have so to say a team project. It's empty. It's literally an empty.
Got it. So you've got a project that's
Yes.
basically got a Linux dev container that
It's
just allows you to.
Debian or Ubuntu latest version, and that's it. And it's very fast. It's there's no overhead there because it doesn't need to install anything. Yeah, and this works really well. And there's one thing that I learned the hard way that I didn't do in the beginning, and that is that on your local you have one open code instance and you have one open code database. Some few months ago they switched from file-based storage of sessions and information to an SQLite database. On its own, not a problem, but SQLite is not so fond of mounting the same database in multiple environments. It doesn't work well. That doesn't work. So what did I do? And I can show you here. What did I do? I made basically a database for every environment, or a set of database files for every project I use. And how do I do that? I just calculate the MD5 hash of the folder I'm in, and for that folder it creates an environment. And so I have 15 open code databases on my system. They all mounted, and they can use it. And I mount them by design in every environment. Why? Because sometimes it's interesting to know something from another project, and then I can do it. It's not by default that way that it knows everything, but it can help, for example, to learn from previous sessions across projects. I basically, with SQLite, I do some funky magic and basically database queries and join them, and then I have one big information table of everything. And that's basically also how I improve my skills and my agents, that I can learn from what happened in the past. Of course, this is cool. This works well for me. But what if you want to, like Lee? That's one of the questions that you asked previously, or when we discussed this before. So let's say you want to use OpenCode in your local. What if you want to connect to that instance? Well, that's a cool thing. OpenCode can do that.
I just while you were demoing some of that, I just added the Chrome DevTools MCP server, and like, yes, I haven't got that bridge that you've got, but it just works, which is awesome for the screenshot. So
it's
even that in itself,
on
love
its own.
it.
That's mind blowing. Like, it just works. But I really urge you, do not give it your own profile. Make just a different profile. I can give you the command, or it's even in that README. So it's really powerful that way to ensure that you can separate.
Yeah, I feel like it defaults. I guess, yeah, I feel like it default. It might be because, again, I don't know how your Chrome's configured, but we've got these weird. I would imagine yours is the same. But
Same.
basically, I told it to just go to GitLab.com and take a screenshot, and it went and it had like the cookie pop up, which means it definitely didn't have my session.
And I just remembered, I think recently Google itself changed the policy of their Chrome DevTools to say you
Awesome.
need a different profile by default, exactly for that, to prevent, yeah, data not being shown. So
Cool.
let me quickly check if I can find how where did I try that out? But I'm going to first explain why I say it. OpenCode itself is able to connect to a remote instance, basically where you have your local OpenCode and all your ZSH magic and logic, and you can just say connect to the one in my dev container. So that would be for you, Lee, like you asked, is that possible? Yes. Then it's, so to say, a headless instance. Your VS Code is running headless, and you just connect your local tooling to it. But all the rest happens there. So that's best of both worlds, because then you have your Ruby and NPM and all running there, but you can use your local instance to type and to work on your local instead of in the VS Code UI.
And that's actually open code, sorry, that's
Yes.
connecting to itself inside
Yes.
the
Exactly.
it's not open code connecting to SSH to the shell.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
connect.
Yes. It does basically it does the TUI to TUI link, so to say. And I'm looking where I found it, but it's attach, I think that it's called. but I can't find it in the README. Attach. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. So you can do this. I'll share my screen. So if you run, and that's the cool thing, if you then combine that with what I showed on how I run my open code, you could perfectly have your own set of open code tooling and configuration and startup scripts. You just run open code serve, and then you can do open code run, attach, and attach to it. Of course, a little bit of overhead. You need to know the port and so on and so on. So there is some sort of, it's not so easy, so to say, or seamless. But I can see how you could use some magic or logic or automated logic to do that. And this is basically, and maybe elaborate a little bit on the name Vivari here. Vivari is what I'm trying to build, because what I'm hitting right now is I have, at this point, I think 7 different VS Code projects with a few open code sessions. That's a lot. I've been alt tabbing.
Yeah, yes, you want a single window that you
Yes.
can sort of
And that's what I'm building here, and that's what I'm building. It's basically the combination of 3 things. It's the bridge between dev container CLI, VS Code CLI, and some magic. That, oh yeah, some opinionated logic, so to say, to enable an overview where I see all my sessions. I've been working heavily on it a few weeks ago. Then I stopped somehow. I don't know anymore why or how, or something else popped up in between. But for now, I'm still back to alt tabbing, but I really think it's powerful to use it this way, because then you have one overview for everything instead of having to switch between windows. And it is really cool. It works really well. As you can also see the sub agents that come to play. You also see the gates, like the question gates. Like in one glance, you can see I need to answer 4 questions in these specific sessions. Because yeah, that's the overhead or burden. The moment you start parallelizing and running them in parallel, that's the overhead. But yeah, it works really well for me. This one is not the most important one. The most important one is basically having that tooling available and the CDP bridge to make it work, and the rest is seamless, so to say.
nice.
Cool. Yeah, really like it.
Yeah, and if you would look at my recent MRs, all of them are made this way. I haven't made it. It sounds like strange, but I haven't made a screenshot. I don't know why. Why would I? Like it's the obvious part. Like also for like testing if something works. And the cool thing is, and that's where it's also definitely for the contributor platform or GitLab or everything with the UI, you can interact with that browser. You can click it on yourself. You can see it. You can instruct your agent. No, I see it there. Of course, he cannot see what you pointed at, but you can specify it. So definitely try that browser tool. It's a game changer if you want to speed up the work that you do on front-end tasks. Yeah, and it opens up.
Even if you just work on something, create a merge request and say, hey, please describe what I did there and add some screenshots here and there.
Yeah.
That saves like 10 minutes already for
Yeah,
one thing.
it's all small things, but add it. I can
Yeah.
way more. Big thing I learned also for open code: do not try to make open code rebase code. It doesn't work. And for the simple reason, and I know why, and it's just because under the hood, it makes its own Git repository of the files that change to be able to track what happens. And it just crashes. If you try it for the monolith, it just starts using 15, 20 gigabytes of RAM just to process that. So that's the one thing I don't do. I do my rebase. I start a new session after the rebase, and I just say, look at my previous session. I give it a session ID, what we discussed there, to give it, so to say, the context, without the overhead of knowing everything that are the exact file changes that happened, because those are not relevant. It's the conclusions that are relevant, or the gist of what we did. And that's a hard learning. Otherwise, you hit issues very fast.
How does your setup or even open code in general behave if you have multiple sessions open which probably touch the same files? Is it how does it behave?
Well, that's exactly also why I started making that Vivari thing I showed, because there is one issue that you have for stateful applications. You cannot, you can use work trees or subtrees or how it's called in Git, but that's fine for stateless applications because that's just, this is the code, there is no database, there is nothing around it, that works. So, but what I want to do then, or why also Vivari exists, to have literally a fully new environment next to it. So in one environment, I only work in the same state. One VS Code window is one state of that application at the same time. Because otherwise you have the same issue. But I can open and write in the same files, that's no issues. But I cannot like load two different branches. Which makes sense. You also don't work that way. It would be very strange.
No, I don't.
Funny enough, I tried at the weekend. Nicholas reported a random little bug, and I tried to solve it, and I wanted to try and compare open code codex and Claude code.
Cool.
And I thought that I've used Git Worktree a couple of times on the contributor platform, but I obviously have forgotten how to use it. So I thought I'd set up three different like working trees and put each agent on a different one, but apparently I didn't because they were all trying to modify. So I asked them all the same question, explained the same bug, and tried to get them. And one of them obviously was a bit slower than the others and said, "Oh, this has already been fixed." I was like, "Ah, okay." Um,
Well,
so
go ahead, sorry.
I need to remind myself how to how to use work trees at some point.
Yeah, that's why I decided to skip work trees on its own because I know I will hit the issue the moment I have a stateful logic or something that basically also need a database, because suddenly then I need to deviate from like config and stuff.
Yeah,
So I was gonna skip it. Like I'm just gonna make a new environment because I already have the system to run isolated environments. Why bother, so to say? The overhead is okay, yeah, a few gigs of RAM. Luckily my machine is
I
small.
think it's more like that we need to make sure that we build things so that they will work like that, if that makes sense. Like, the contributor platform as an example, I'm guessing that Redis would explode because the same port is being used. Well, in fact, everything would explode because the same port is being used.
Yeah, and then
Like, so it
suddenly
needs tweaking, right?
yeah, and that's also one of the key advantages then of using um, uh, the ecosystem of VS Code. That port mapping is so easy. So that's why we have to. It's for me it makes sense to be somehow opinionated. Like this will work really well. Use VS Code, use this, use that, use dev containers and VS Code because it solves a lot of the problems that you will have if you try to parallelize them yourself or manually. It's and they are all solvable, but they just don't worth the effort for somebody who wants to try to contribute for the first time. That's why, that's also, maybe you remember, that's one of the first thing I did when I joined. Like, I started making merge requests for adding dev container support and VS Code support to various projects because it lowers the bar to start. And yeah, I hadn't used VS Code or dev containers before I joined, but it's like this is from an outside perspective a very easy way to get started. And I think we can, if you know add the AI to the equation of what you want to enable, like AI powered development, we can do the same approach. Like think outside from what is the easiest way to move forward, and that will help in both having agent configuration or agent prompts. That's why I hinted towards the skills. I really think a skill would be helpful because then the what you use doesn't really matter. It's just the information that's in the skill with how contributions start the best way, that we can have a central way of managing it, or not a central way, but a uniform way of managing it. So yeah.
Um, Yeah, I'm just trying the attach thing, and there must be some kind of authentic. Well, I don't know if it is that or not, but I'm not having any luck with it at the moment.
Normally it's not, by default it doesn't have any authentication magic or logic instead in it. You basically can try it, you can try it locally. You don't have to use even a dev container because you can start one open code serve on a specific port, and then use
Right.
another code to connect on your local machine. So to ensure that you know it works locally, and then move one step into the container.
Mm, just trying. Right. I'm not sure if they're trying to enforce off. You wouldn't have thought so, would you?
I didn't use anything special when I tried it. I can try it. Let me quickly check if I can try it actually. Where am I here? So let's see. Let's go here. A new terminal. Open code serve. Let's give it a port.
Yes, that works fine locally, like the server and the local running on the same, but trying to connect into container.
Let me know. Check it. Check it also here. Let's doop, and then where am I here? Open code. And then what does it connect?
Attach.
Attach. I always forget what it is.
That's all right.
There we go. And let's quickly check. Is it port 10,000? Yes. Let me quickly try it. Chun, chun, chun.
I mean, technically, that might be overkill anyway for me. Like I say, it may only need to be able to SSH into the. I don't know whether there's advantages of it actually running open code inside the.
I really like it. I really like it because it's yeah, for me it works. I am in my open code session. Yeah. Yes. And I can show you 1
But
second.
yours are both running
No,
locally
no,
or
no. I
not?
explicitly tried it out. I ran open code serve in my contributor, VS Code containerized session, and then I ran on my local. I ran open code attach and the URL, and it works. I'm in my because my local system. Yeah, it's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna try one more time.
So I did this on my local. Just gonna the port of course can be different. So this is my attach on my local, and this is where am I? Terminal here. And this is the one I did in my container. And of course, because I use VS Code, it automatically maps or opens that port up.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's it. And then I see my container, sorry, then I see my VS Code information as if I would be local with all the upsides of it.
Show you while I'm trying. So fresh open code install. So it just did
Yeah.
open code serve. I won't bother telling it apart. Yes, I had to start a new thing, which is probably expected after installing open code. So you can see it's working.
Yeah. And if you know
Um,
the open code serve and then dash dash port something. Yeah.
can't spell.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering like what what is going on here?
Now this is interesting. I
Yeah.
didn't get this message before.
So something must have go wrong there. But normally no. If you go out of this and go and do attach and then HTTP yada 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 localhost 10,000, it should connect to the one in your.
Nice. Weird. It feels. I feel like it randomly set a password that.
And you can normally see it because in the left bottom corner of your screen you will see a different path than you're in your local.
Yeah.
So you could like ask it like what depend. Yeah, of course you have npm or anything else locally installed, but yeah, that should work.
So I've asked it a question which, to basically run the RSpec, the
Yeah,
back end or the front end tests, it needs to be inside the container. So
yeah.
it
And that's
hasn't
how.
exploded yet. So I think it looks promising.
Yeah. And that's then the cool thing that if you combine that with mounting some of the default config that you have, your agent configuration or your skills and so on, in every image, in every container, then you have a very powerful system to, yeah, to scale it, so to say, and to.
Right. So this is also loading the config from the container then, or not?
Yes, my setup is also loading my. So I have on my local system, I have my agents.md and my agent definition and my skills. I have it once, and then I mount it into those running containers. So open code in my container can use it.
So I must admit, yeah. So to be honest, this like I'm trying to understand the point of this because if it's using all of the config from inside the container, then surely I would just run open code. Why serve and attach?
100% is because you ask
Yeah,
that I like, yes, you can. I would not know why, because you have your environment there. So I would not do it, but it's possible. Yes.
got it. Yeah, so it make more sense, like I say, if it could just SSH in
Yeah. If
so
you want to,
that it could
yeah,
run commands inside the container.
if you want to run that way, that's perfectly possible too. There is nothing blocking you to do it either way, and you still can
Yeah,
have advantage of the containerized solution. Yeah. Yeah.
cool, 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 cool. Awesome. Um,
So yeah.
So I'm gonna go off, well, not off topic actually, still on topic, but talking a little bit less, just a bit more about open code. So interestingly, I think I said to you that I've been sort of poking around, following a bit Nick sort of like so. Um, Initially put me onto the Oh My Open agent, or whatever it was, and that was working fairly well. But having a few issues here and there, but. I know he sort of then decided to scrap that and essentially build from the ground up, having a bit more control and being a bit more deliberate in all of the decisions, so to speak. Um, I did the same, but it was annoying because I spent time telling it about me and the team and loads of stuff, and I gave it a memory and I did loads of things, and then you know after a while, I was like, it's not actually using any of this. So like it's still working fine for, it's solving the problems and it's doing a good enough job, but it's not taking into consideration those kind of specific things that I've said about like the memory would be really helpful to do a sort of like, okay, look back and try and improve yourself, etc.
Yeah, and that's also I hit exactly the same thing. I skipped the Oh My Open Code or the like the very powerful very powerful multi-agent approaches. I built them myself, but I hit the same issue, and that's where I think skills are so important for, because then you can have it's like the reference I made yesterday about the matrix and Trinity learning a new skill. It's top of mind at that moment, because what you did, Lee, is correct. You said and your agent.md, it's definitely there. It has to use memory. But the moment it needs to use it, it's 100,000 tokens later. Like, how should it still be able to remember that thing it's meant? So it basically what it needs to remember that it has skills and tools. And at that moment that it can look up the list of tools, ooh, or skills, ooh, I have memory. Let's try it. And then it will figure that out. But saying something once, that's also, I learned it the hard way. It doesn't work. It forgets it. And sub agents are a way of doing that, because then you start a fresh environment and it becomes again top of mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
But skills are, I think, a way better approach because they are more agnostic. They always will work. That's part of the harness of the key capability of your harness.
Yeah, I don't know how that works actually in terms of like so you start off and I guess the context of your agent is just your prompt basically. Um, but then you have a conversation, you have back and forth, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden the context is growing, 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 right? So presumably it's in your agent, you tell it about the skills that are available to it and what they do and when to use them,
What
etc.
the skill and your open code itself is able to discover all the skills it has in its directory. What I do have in my agent definition is some very specific cases where a specific skill should be used. I still don't have guarantee it will happen. So this description of the skill and the name of the skill is still very important, but at least you can hint towards the system. Because the constant thing we are doing is moving from a deterministic flow, we know how it should happen, into something that does probability of what will happen. Like there's no way we can guarantee step A, B, and C will happen in that same sequence, and we try to do it by saying it to it or typing it in an agent.md, but that's not how it works. It it will it will need to have some freedom, but we want to be sure that the choice is deliberate what we want it to do. Like the skill has to be there and has to have a good name and a good description so you can make the correct decision. And so I still remember also like the discussion or the conversation you had a week ago, like you were typing something and it was like not doing what you said. And I said, yes, this time it will not do it. Next time it
Yeah. We
yeah.
asked it to solve an issue, and the first time it read the repo and it read the agents.md, and the second time it didn't.
Yes, and that's exactly
Um,
what you want to have less instructions in your agent.md or less bloated, so to say, agent.md, but skills and very opinionated parts that are battle tested, so to say, that can be shared across many people. That's also, for example, in the GitLab repo where the skills are shared. Nobody should reinvent the ones for using GLab CLI. They are already there. You can just help improve it, but you don't have to start to write your own instructions on how to use GLab. That's not needed anymore. We can solve that all together and within GitLab itself, but also within the community. So if you would move towards a skill to contribute, everybody could contribute the skill on how to contribute because and then everybody benefits from it. And I really think skills are the correct way to solve that part of the puzzle.
yeah. But like I say, it's, the bit that I'm missing at the moment is it knowing to use the skill. Like it's clearly failed. Like it actually said when I asked it yesterday, I said like, oh, um, I want to review your memory and like skills and blah. And it sort of, although again, I never know whether to believe it or not, but it said no. Since you set it up, I've not. The only things in the memory are the things that you added explicitly yourself when you set it up. And yeah, the other skills haven't been used, sort of thing. So
Yeah, that's the difficult part to ensure that instructions are followed, so to say, and that's
but I don't think the instructions are there in the first place. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
I think it probably created the skills, but
that's
it
there.
failed. I
Yeah,
mean, maybe it did put the skills in like, I haven't got as far as triple checking that sort of thing.
uh,
But
but something else that you mentioned that also is I think important is we currently are testing a lot with open code, and we also are testing with Claude and Codex, but that's also an interesting part that those skills should not be written in a harness specific way, so not specifically for open code, and that's a cool thing. Then we can switch harness, or people can choose their harness of choice, and it will work because the concept is the harness supports skills, and the rest is automatically, so to say. And that's what's really cool about those skills that they work that way.
yeah, and that's always my hope that when we're using open code, like it shouldn't really work any differently to like ultimately it should be more about the model. So if I ask the same question of Claude Code and Open Code both using the Anthropic models, then they should answer. Obviously, it's not deterministic, but in a similar, they should do a similar job. If I ask the same question of Codex and Open Code using GPT, again, I would expect similar sort of
It will
results.
it will for like what's happened between the question that's been asked, let's say your first initial question, and what goes to the LLM and back. But what comes back is tool calling, is instructions on how to proceed. And that's also up for evaluation for the harness itself, for open code or for Claude Code or for Codex. They will probably do different things, which then of course impacts the next step where again information goes to the LLM. So the harness itself, that's why I like to test harnesses, because they they specify a lot on how a task will be tackled, and not only the LLM. And the cool thing is the harness is the one that you can influence, or you can extend or make plugins or ensure that that deterministic logic is in it. and that's what I like.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that quite mad because it's a bit
I
too,
know.
there's too many layers basically. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes, yes.
the LLM having the sort of impact,
Yeah,
then the prompt, then obviously the skills, the MCP servers, clients, tools. Then you're saying the harness on top of that. Like there's this, it's becoming a bit out of control.
it's true, and that's yes, that's true. That you could say exactly the same with JavaScript frameworks. There are so many choices, and you don't know to choose which one at some point. And so that will evolve, and that's why I really like why open code exists on its own, or open source harnesses, so to say, because it helps in like defining, or the fact that multiple exist, because they will become better at it in the end. And yeah,
What I think you can also say is that you can rule out the LLM slash provider a little bit in terms of variables.
mm,
So if you're trying to compare, as I say, like Codex and Claude Code, then there's so many things that are different about
yeah,
them. Different
exactly.
harnesses, different tools, different LLMs, different providers, different, everything's different. Whereas if you're all you want to do is see, well, is this model better or worse than this one? If you can use the same tool, harness, etc.,
Yeah,
etc., and all that's changing is the model, that's got to be beneficial.
yeah.
Um, Awesome. Awesome. Well, I think I'm hoping the rain has stopped. So I might actually, I
Yeah.
don't know. I always assume it's very much the same for you. Like from day to day, we're supposed to have like borderline 30 degrees by the end of the week, which is insane considering it's probably
Same here.
10 today.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I, like this weekend, I was looking with my youngest, like because he was complaining it was raining. I was like, no, it will become better, and then wait, it will become way better and way too warm again. Yeah, it's yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for sharing. I'll hopefully find some time to poke a little bit between
Yeah.
now and next week. And
And
yeah.
I will see to open them up, like they are, I think, still private at this moment on my personal project, but I will open them up to make them public because there is nothing
Oh, awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Appreciate it. I think
to
most of
give
the
second.
information was there.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that I, yeah, I feel like I'm struggling with a bit is what we're saying about it being very. Do you think opinionated is a correct term? Do you know what I mean? Like that, I like it when there's an obvious way to do something that's like this is it's like seems like the best way for lots of reasons. Whereas, even you've been open in saying, well, it's your approach, but actually, like, yeah, there's no,
That's the cool thing, that we can share the part that makes sense anyhow, and those we can add into the projects or instructions, or yeah, doesn't really matter, but that's the part. And then everybody, we should not block experimentation on how we could improve it. So it has to be very clear that it's a starting point, not the gate, so to say. Like
yeah, yeah. And with your, remind me with your mounts that. Yeah, so again, it's like, okay, this solution works for people using open code.
yeah, yes,
Um, your mounts were specific, they're mounting something from your user from the host, or are
yeah, it
they?
can be any directory. It literally can be any directory. There is no
But what
my
I mean is, what I would love is something that we could share in a way where even if it was just our team, even if it didn't work for the community, but
oh
when I
yeah,
started poking around, and don't get me wrong, it may be that we all want to work in different ways, and that's totally
but I
fine.
understand what you're saying. Yeah,
But what's annoying is when I was looking, because it's really funny the approach you took, because I played around a couple of weeks ago and I actually added the open code feature, the out of the box dev container open code feature to the contributor platform and started poking around. But as soon as I had to start mounting loads of things that were specific to me, to where my agent lived, to where my keys were, to where my all that kind of stuff, I was like, this just doesn't really scale, and this will work for me and only me. Um, and
yeah.
if somebody isn't using open code, they're using a different tool, or
Well,
they
that's my next step now because the next thing I want to do, I want to test out Pi. Pi is another harness, and then I will see what will happen. How far do I need to go to support both? Like it will be natural to figure out what's the opinionated stuff or the specific stuff for open code and what's the specific stuff for Pi. Because the moment I have that, then we again have something that we can see what makes sense to add in the baseline, so to say, and the common denominator. Because that's what the part you want to share, and the rest is how does somebody wants to work with this. But I'm quite sure of I'm sure that skills are part of both. They are part for any harness
yeah
that exists today. So
yeah
that's why I think that's the key thing to move forward and to put, or so to say, business logic or definition of approach that we want to have for contributors. That's where it should land, because then the harness doesn't make a difference, or doesn't matter. No.
It would be nice if there is a tutorial for complete newbies how to use Pi, because you mentioned that you want to run this remotely and the contribution platform should be on some servers so that you don't have to run all these heavy dependencies in your machine. But when you run these agents, when you have this LLM, then you have this code repository that you need to commit from, and you also have these environments. It doesn't fit in my head anymore. Like you have to, like there is needs to be some tutorial with diagram. If I want to contribute immediately, where should I run these agents? How can I containerize it so that it doesn't harm my system and stuff?
I like the idea of a diagram, sort
Yeah.
of mermaidy, whatever you want to call it. We're definitely like video is something that I'm really keen on. I think the whole team's really keen on. Like we're approaching with from lots of different angles at the moment, attacking different things. But yeah, they're definitely something to show the end to end. The problem I know that we had before, or I recall like 3 years ago trying to record a video and there being too many forks, like
Yeah.
I should have probably just said, right, okay, happy path, I record a video covering me doing this MR to solve this issue or whatever, start to finish, including, right, I'm going to install the dependencies for GDK, I'm going to bootstrap GDK, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. But I think I got quite bogged down. And even like when something went wrong, which inevitably does when you've got a 100-step process, I then was like, okay, so you don't part of me didn't want to demo something that worked flawlessly first time
Mm.
when actually the reality of it is that something's always going to go wrong,
Yeah.
but then I can't show every single thing going wrong. So yeah
But I like the concept indeed that you mentioned, Anatoli, about the diagram or the steps, because then there can be specific instructions of variants on specific steps, depending on how you want to approach it. And that really will help to see the bigger picture end to end before you start with it, because that's,
yeah. And I think the contributor platform also gives us some nice opportunities, although we've sort of figured out it might not be the best source for some of this information. But it was Sina that I was talking to that said that he believes that the GitLab handbook is actually inside common LLMs. And I don't know how we prove that, if that's right, if that isn't right, etc. But what that means is that when you're asking them questions about contributing to GitLab, that they've actually got some knowledge around the process without even having to sort of go out to other places to get that knowledge. So that's sort of an interesting thing. It's not a blocker, but with the contributor platform, what we would have the ability to do is something that's interactive. So, for example, if we wanted to document the process for running open code locally or inside the container, we could sort of almost ask a couple of questions or a question up front, like either ask them to select where they want to run it or answer, are you already using tool X or something along those lines, where it could say, well, if you're already using it locally, then you won't have to reconfigure it if you continue to run it locally. Here's what you'll get, here's what you'll lose, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
questions like if they say they specifically want to use Claude Code or they specifically want to use Codex, then we can almost say, well, feel free to do so, but we haven't got those paths documented yet, or whatever it might be. Here's the skills that you can use, or here's the prompt or the agent or whatever. But we haven't nailed all of the different yeah.
But it's a good, yeah. I think the only way of doing it is like start documenting it in a way and then validate, for example, with Anatoly or anybody else, like how does it resonate? Does it bring enough clarity? And what's the next step you need to zoom in on? Because it will be very, very difficult otherwise to figure that out.
I would definitely try to set up the PyDev without, disrupting my system with entrusted repositories.
Yeah.
That would be awesome to test and improve the docs as well.
Cool. Awesome. Well, lunchtime for me. I imagine you, if you haven't already been. Thanks for sharing. Have a good day.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, Matthias.
Thanks for joining us.